St. Louis, I'm going to be honest, because I keep it 100% on this podcast. I wholeheartedly believe that we were too hard on Kevin Hayes this season. And I take responsibility for voicing my thoughts, but we need to talk about why I think that this was too much all at once coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our lovely St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about the fact that we were too hard on Kevin Hayes. We have some Worlds updates, and I saw a tweet, and this tweet has been lingering in my head. So we have a lot to discuss on today's episode of Locked On Blues. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, get to 1,000 before the draft. It will be completely awesome for the channel just to see the growth that we have made as a family on this channel at this point, because many of you I talk to on a daily basis. So make sure you do that because my real everydayers know that it goes a long way. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I think we were too hard on Kevin Hayes. I really do. I look back to the season, and I've been doing a lot of thinking, and the reason why I say this is because I was watching him in Worlds, right? And I'll talk about that in a whole separate segment here that we have on Locked On Blues today. But he's not bad. Okay, he's not as good as he used to be. That's any player that gets older, with a very few exception, aka Sidney Crosby, Ovechkin. You have certain guys that they get a little bit older and they're still fine. But I believe that this season wasn't the worst season for Kevin Hayes. He made solid plays on the ice, and sure, maybe his speed wasn't the best, but it wasn't like he didn't hold his own on the ice. And that is something that I've come to the terms with. When we got Kevin Hayes, it was this blockbuster deal that we had with the Philadelphia Flyers. And when I say that very sarcastically because it was not an insane deal. Everybody thought that, St. Louis were getting, Travis Sanheim, who's one of the Flyers defensemen. That's a pretty good defenseman, and he would have actually done really well with Parayko. But we thought that there was a lot coming from this trade, and there wasn't. And I think that when you only get one aspect of something, right, which was Kevin Hayes in this instance, yeah, it was a little disappointing as it was, and Kevin didn't even play yet wearing the blue note, and we already felt that disappointment. I think that there was a lot of pressure put on Kevin Hayes because besides Sundqvist coming back, he was the one big offseason move that we made. And that's not on Kevin. That has everything to do with Doug Armstrong, not Hayes. But I feel like a lot of the frustration and anger that we had as fans kind of got projected onto Kevin Hayes a little bit. And sure, am I going to say that he's a good player? He's a good player. He's been in the league for a while, multi-million-dollar player. Not awful. Like, obviously, he's good at hockey, but definitely not, a first liner, there's nothing wrong with that. You can be an amazing third liner and still contribute in big ways. And I think, towards the end of the season, when we saw him get healthy scratched, a lot of us were like, oh, this should have happened all along. But if you want me to be completely honest, it's not like the Blues did any better once he was healthy scratched. I don't think it made a difference. And that's what it is. I mean, I look back to the season and I'm like, wow, a lot of the episodes that I did, a lot of my frustration came out on Kevin Hayes. And, he got a goal against the Philadelphia Flyers when he did that Metropolitan road trip. And that was huge for him going against his former team. Obviously, a lot of fans in Philadelphia weren't afraid to show how they felt. But for Kevin Hayes, I mean, he held himself in a really good demeanor where he was respectful and he took it in a good way. And I think that, I see how he is off the ice. I see how he is on the ice. And I'm thinking to myself, as a fan base, were we just too hard on him? And I want to know your opinions on this. I do, because I'm looking back and I'm like, oh, maybe some of, the losses that they had, it just wasn't on Hayes. Like, it was a team loss. But because we had so many high expectations of him, we put it on him. It's a really interesting thing to think about. And I am going to be doing a lot of reflection, on this podcast. I love our Blues, but I hate how the season ended. And a part of me just hates the fact that in the games that mattered towards the end of the season, he was healthy throughout, and all of us were like, "Oh, it's fine, it's fine." Not really. Like, I know Philadelphia is retaining half of his salary, which is huge in terms of us, right? It helps us out. But I mean, this is a guy, a multi-million-dollar guy that should be making an impact on the team and shouldn't be healthy scratch during these huge games. I think, was he comfortable here? I mean, he wants to be here, it seems. It seems like he likes to be here. But another part of me is like, what if maybe that third line wasn't the best matchup for him with who was winging him? I said it best, but there was a point, and I believe it was Braden Shen was the center and Kevin Hayes was the left wing. I believe that's what it was. That's when he really stood out to me and he looked phenomenal. Centers, it's tough. It's a tough position to succeed in. And I think that he can hold his own, no doubt about it. But I was like, wow, as a winger, now that's when he looked the best he's looked on the ice. And the thing about Hayes, and it makes it just interesting to watch him. He is a big guy. He's like, and in a good way, like as hockey players should be, like big, good. But when he was on that wing position, like even all the hits he would, it just looked like he was a little bit more aggressive, which I like to see. The forechecking, all of it. So this also again makes me think: were we too hard on him because he was put in a position that maybe he would have done better in a different position? Makes you think. But then we'll talk about Worlds. Obviously, he is centering the third line there. So clearly they have him as a center, and I know that's what he plays, and I get that. But I'm just saying, as an unbiased but biased Blues fan, watching him in that wing position, I just felt like that's where he excelled more at. And I am curious, what do you think? Do you think that Kevin Hayes is just going to always be a center and they're never going to put him on the wing? Or do you think, hey, Hale, that's actually not a bad, statement that you made and it makes sense? Because what I'm saying on this podcast, it's not clickbait. It's not to, get people to argue. It's to have a conversation. And part of me in having this conversation is sometimes the difficult conversations of, the off season. And I talked yesterday about Jordan Kyrou and how I hated the fact that all of what happened went down, because I feel like he is a player that people just tend to not like. And it's not like he does anything. And I don't know why people get served the wrong way about him. Maybe it's the money and the contract and expecting him to play better than he is. But I went over how he did this season when I graded him, and he didn't have that bad of a season, relatively speaking. So why is it? And again, this goes to Torrey Krug. He was another person that was talked about in this deal with Philadelphia. Why is it? Do we come at certain players on the team and pinpoint all of the mistakes, all of the losses on them? But we have to come to the realization that Robert Thomas makes mistakes, and I don't always like to admit that, but he does. Neighbors makes mistakes. Shen makes mistakes. Walker makes mistakes. Turchenko makes mistakes. All of these guys make mistakes. But yet, and when I talked about Sammy Blais last year, everyone came at me. But what I said was true. I don't think that some of these players should be sticking around with the Blues. I'm sorry, but I don't. And I know that you like some of these guys, off the ice, and you think that they're good locker room guys, and that's fine. But do I think it's going to win them a championship? Do I think it's going to win them that Stanley Cup again? No. And again, that's where a part of this podcast sometimes gets me in trouble a little bit, because I'll say what I'm thinking. Because again, I'm just telling you, fan to fan, how I feel about a topic. Doesn't mean that I'm right. Doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It's just an opinion. But then sometimes I feel like I'll say something like when I said last year ago, maybe they should get rid of Sammy Blais. And so many people came at me and were like, you can't do that. Okay. I know I can't, but maybe Doug Armstrong can. The problem is that we have a solid mini core of guys, right? I don't want to say a solid core. We have a solid mini core. And right now we just need them to execute. And that's what it is. execution and playing good hockey is what we need the St. Louis Blues to do. And the Blues are not going to do that with weak links. They're not. You look at all the teams in the playoffs right now, the final 4 teams, tell me where you see their third line looking bad, because they don't, because they're good hockey teams. All right, before I begin yelling at you guys now, which I don't know why I got so heated on that one, you know what it is? It's because everyone came at me, and it was just very uncalled for last summer when I was just stating a fact about Sammy Blais. Let's go talk about my friends over at Game Time. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. So I'm on Twitter yesterday, and listen, tickets to games are expensive. So I naturally said, hey, by the way, if anybody wants to use promo code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase, you should do it. And I had 5 people tell me for an event that they were going to, 5 different people said that they used the promo code, they got the $20 off, and they could afford to go. So Game Time literally not only does it save you money, but the promo code on top of it saves you even more money. So if there's an event that you want to go to, again, you have to use that promo code. It was unreal how many people ended up using it yesterday. I used Game Time myself to get my tickets. I get the best seats. I was sitting such great seats, and everybody's like, how did you get it for such a low price? And I'm like, Game Time, obviously. That Game Time app is always being utilized on my phone. So this is what I need you to do, okay? Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I feel like a part of me has become like the World Update podcast because I just love worlds. I don't know why, but it's so intriguing to me, right? So we haven't done a little bit of an update in a little while. I kind of want to do an update, okay? Is that okay? So right now we had the playoffs, and we have one team that advanced, and we had one team that didn't. Well, I say like it's bad, but yeah. Team USA lost at Czechoslovakia. I always feel like I say it wrong. Czechoslovakia. It was a 1-0 loss. I mean, they had the entire third period to come back, and guess what? They didn't. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. 1-0. USA had 36 shots on goal while Czech had 28. And the problem is, I'm not surprised. I mean, out in the quarters is devastating because I feel like we're just a better hockey team than some of these other teams. But right now, obviously Czech won, and then Sweden won. Sweden has a lot of good players too. But then let's go take a look at our friends up north in Canada. Canada won 6-3, beating Slovakia. So then they advanced to the semifinals. So this was the quarterfinals, by the way. So huge dub, as I would like to say, for Canada. So scoring, by the way, and I say this because it just makes me really happy, was Jared McCann, but Colton Parayko with the assist. That is right, baby. So Parayko gets an assist, which makes me just so happy for him. Obviously, we all know how I feel about Parayko, and at the end of the day, he is like my golden child right now. So in net today, let's go see. I'm pretty sure it was Hofer with the dub. Some of these games, they go on very early, and some of us have work and we can't always watch them. But it just was really nice to see that Parayko was able to get a goal, and obviously at the end of the day, good for Parayko. I mean, an assist on the goal. And the thing is, too, you have to also think about it like this, is that it's not easy, right? It's not easy to be playing these games. Your season ends, you're probably tired, and then boom, you have to do all of it. So yeah, I was right. And it was Biddington at Hofer. I don't know why the hockey website had Hofer, but it was Biddington. But they had today with Colton Parayko, it was Owen Power with him. So I thought it was good hockey. I mean, I caught a little bit of it, but I wanted to give you guys an update. Listen, I'm sorry. USA, like, do better. Canada, rooting for Canada. So that is that. All right, let's talk about my friends over at Indeed. If my Wi-Fi wants to load. Okay. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools that help you find matched candidates. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. One thing I love about Indeed is that it's super easy to use. The website is not complicated at all. And the nice thing is that you're always able to find the candidates that match. So obviously, Indeed is the way to go. Okay. So start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? You need Indeed. And as I always like to say, Indeed you do. Ooh, so I saw a tweet, and this tweet made me get in my feelings. I go on Twitter quite a bit because, as one does, go on Twitter quite a bit. And I got a notification because I always have my Blues notifications on. And I was so hashtag, this is what comes up. We went Blues. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no, Hale, you just watched a documentary like a week ago again on the cup when you need to just not get emotional. Like, I know that the playoffs are going on. But then they said, we went Blue Day celebrates the 5-year anniversary of our Stanley Cup championship. 5 years. That's half a decade. And well, first off, I felt old. I'm like, okay, gee, thanks. Like, I was 20 when we won, and now I'm like 25. Like, thanks a lot, St. Louis Blues. But then secondly, I thought about it, and I'm like, wow, the regression that we have made is astonishing. So to continue on, it said, I'll just read you the whole thing at once. We Went Blues Day celebrates the 5-year anniversary of our Stanley Cup championship on that June 12th and will feature a summer sale, open house, trivia night, community outreach, and a whole lot more. So there are pictures of Robert Thomas holding the cup. And I'm like, okay, Hale, do not get upset. And it's not that I'm upset, but I mean, I was seeing this and it just, I mean, all the comments are the same. It's like, oh, when's the next cup going to be in 50 years from now? It just sucks. And even Jeremy Rutherford, who's a great writer, by the way, for The Athletic, he even put out, it can't be 5 years since the cup, can it? The Blues have a fun list of things that they can celebrate their anniversary with, but somebody underneath that replied to him and said, so it only took 3 years for Armstrong to ruin the Stanley Cup team. I'm like, accurate. But it just, I don't know. It just sucks because you know what it is too, and I was thinking about a lot of this when I saw this tweet. We have some of the same players obviously on that team, but the guys that made the most impact besides Binnington in the playoffs are gone. I don't know what the Blues need to do to get back to the cup. I know what they should do, but you're not going to have that same team again. And it sucks that the Blues couldn't remain like a dynasty team. You know what I mean? Because like you have some teams that are just so good and they win one cup and then they're back in contention. The Blues, not so much. And I think about this a lot too. The Vegas Golden Knights are an interesting team to talk about. Obviously, they, went to the Stanley Cup Finals their first season in the NHL, their inaugural season, lost to the Capitals. But yet, only a few short years later, they were able to go back and win the whole thing. And I know the original the six misfits, the original six, whatever you want to, I don't care. I don't really like Vegas. But that's kind of like what we have, right? Like we have a handful of guys that were with us when we won the cup and won it 5 years ago now, well, 4 years and 11 months ago. But yet the Golden Knights were able to build around them. It's just such an interesting concept what management does. You have some management that's really hungry and really just, wanting to get back there. And then you have some other management that's like, blockbuster trade, Kevin Hayes. I'm awful. I'm not. I'm frustrated. I'm a frustrated Blues fan. So tomorrow, of course, will be my favorite Friday segment. Are we feeling blue? Talk some more about off season and then some interesting questions about leadership. I will talk to you tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.